Human is an adjective, the human condition, human suffering, human triumph. And human is a singular noun that describes each of us. Humans is a plural noun. There are 7.2 billion of us spanning our embattled planet, from the world's most densely populated municipality, which is in the Philippines, to the most remote island in the world, the northern Sentinel Island in the Bay of Bengal, or the lone surviving member of the only Indian tribe left in the Amazon who spends every night in a shuttered thatch in the middle of the Amazon forest. We are united across this great span of humanity and the globe we inhabit by certain truths about what it means to be human. We have the impulse to be by ourselves in the wilds of the Amazon, and we have the impulse to be with millions of others in the world's great cities. It is a psychological fact that we are deeply divided within ourselves and also among ourselves, between our deepest impulses to be individual, to make our statement in the world, and to be altruistic, to bind our fate to the fate of common humanity and to move us forward toward a shared idea of progress. This tension between the individual and the altruistic impulse has suffused society since its dawning days. We have covenants, we have agreements, and we have contracts that have tried to meld these conflicting impulses. The Ark of the Covenant, Noah's covenant, the other biblical covenants tried to address the meaning of what we can do when we form a society. In the so-called European Enlightenment, this method of Greek thinking about society took on the name of the social contract, an idea fomented by Hobbes and Locke and Rousseau, the great Enlightenment thinkers. At the core of the social contract is the idea that we as a human and that we as humans walk around as vessels of natural rights that grant us the entitlement to be who we want to be and to do what we want to do, to say and to think what we want to do. These impulses, if left unchecked, of course, cause humans to clash and swear at each other. So the trade or the bargain at the center of the social contract is the agreement that we will, to a limited degree, relinquish certain of our rights in exchange for the social commitment to protect the rest of those rights. That kind of trade is at the essence and at the heart of the human experience. We know that from our own experiences, whether we look at our lovers, our friends, our teammates, our co-workers, or our leaders. So it's well that we think about what is the essence of the bargain that we make when we enter into a social contract. After the Enlightenment, the idea of the rights that we retained was understood to be the concept of liberty, freedom, autonomy. And for centuries, humans, just like all of us here, understood that within the protections of our civic society, we were free to do as we wish and to think as we wish and to speak and act as we wish. Then along came the curiously modern idea of the right to privacy. If you do an n-gram search on Google for the frequency of words in publications, you'll find the stunning fact that before 1890, the concept of the right to privacy was virtually unknown. The origin of the right to privacy as a concept in Western thought is a law review article published in the Harvard Law Review in 1890 by Brandeis and Warren. The right to privacy, the right most cherished by civilized man, the right to be let alone. An important right. It is what allows us all now, as though we have imbibed it from birth through the umbilical cord, to have the instinct that the government should not be able to spy on us, to keep track of what we do, to keep track of what we say in the cells of our private making with our friends. But the right to privacy, viewed only as the right to be let alone, the right to be protected from the scrutiny of the government, is a crabbed and ultimately denuded sense of the right of privacy, for we have lost the other aspect that animated the concept of liberty for so many centuries, going all the way back to Greek philosophy. The autonomy part of privacy means that not only do we have the right to be left alone, but we have the right to create in our lives spheres of our own choosing, invite into those spheres the people whom we want to join us and influence us and help us shape ourselves. Because we have a profound moral obligation as part of the social contract to become the best person that we can possibly be. That's what we owe in response for the miracle of life, and it's also what we owe in response for the protection we get from society. So when we think about the idea of privacy as meaning only that we are protected from the spying eyes of the government, we are thinking only half the necessary thought. This has been true for centuries, and I worry that this concept of privacy, the autonomous circle within which we on our own and with those with whom we choose to consort define ourselves as individual humans and as collective humans, this circle is being eroded. It is there that we accomplish our most profound self. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "A man is only half himself. The other half is his expression." William Gass says the same thing in his great essay, The Unspeakable Silence of Soliloquy. It is in the act of thinking and speaking and writing and articulating ourselves that we become our best self. That's a form of privacy that we need to cherish, and it has been understood for centuries. But we know that every form of social organization appears inevitable only for so long as it lasts. We know also that not only is change coming, but the futurists, going back even to Alvin Toffler in 1972, have told us that not only will change continue, but the rate of change will continue to escalate. And my, aren't we living in a time of escalated change now? We know that it is true that social institutions wrestle unevenly and often unsuccessfully during times of rapid social transformation. But I suggest this is also true of the human psyche and the small human collectives that we form with our family and friends. Change, particularly rapid technological change, can be terribly daunting. And before we know it, in the eye blink of a mouse click, all the old verities that formed our centuries-old concept of human life have disappeared. 50 years ago, it's no surprise, Bob Dylan articulated our current plight. You're invisible now, you got no secrets to conceal. The meaning of that has bedeviled me since I first heard it in 1965. I think we can agree on this. Bob Dylan often speaks cryptically, but I think we also know that he rarely speaks without a purpose. And whether he knew it then or not, he was describing our current plight. How can it be that both sides of the Enlightenment bargain have been upended? We no longer are as protected in or intent on the cells of our friendship that we consciously make. The world changes too fast, and not only the government, but all large social institutions seem so omnipresent that they intrude in our lives. And that creates the paradox that ourselves become invisible. And how can it be that at the same time of our invisibility, that is to say, we would think that our invisibility masks us or shields us from the prying eyes of government, how can it be that simultaneously we have no secrets to conceal? For we know if we have an iPhone or a Google email account or an IP address or a credit card, that we have fewer and fewer secrets to conceal. The idea that we can act autonomously and not be spied on, and the idea that we can act as we wish in our own home and not be spied on, are two sides of what I'll call the Enlightenment bargain. And they are both being eroded by inattention and a certain gaga fanboy fascination with the power of technology. These trends are problematic and they are pervasive, but they are not irreversible. We see at once the power of information technology and its danger. In Europe, you may know, there is currently a trend to try to establish the so-called right to be forgotten. Is there anything more emblematic of the collision of the good and bad forces of technology than this concern? For we all love the ready access to information. Learning, exploring, analyzing, thinking, arguing, and reaching compromise are of the essence of being human. And this fantastic information age we live in makes information so accessible that we are dazzled by our own powers to educate ourselves and find things out. Yet it is that very force that allows me to find out about you, what you did 34 years ago, when you were early in the cocoon process of becoming yourself. We all want a limited right to be forgotten. But the idea that we can stem this flow of information by saying, for instance, there are certain facts that ought not be retrievable, jeopardizes freedoms of expression that I think we ought leave alone. But we all simultaneously think how cool it is that with a mouse click, we can go see the front page of the New York Times on November 23rd, 1963, reporting on the assassination of President Kennedy. And in the very next sentence we say, but no one should be able to go into the archives of the New York Times for November 24th of 1963 and find my juvenile conviction. These collisions over the power of information and the wonders of technology teach us certain lessons. And those lessons I'd like to spend just a moment or two teasing out as I conclude my remarks. It's misascribed to Plato, but it's a better story if we ascribe it to Plato, that he cautioned as one walks around Be kind to all you meet, for everyone is fighting a hard battle. The battle for autonomy and self-expression and the definition of our best self has never been more difficult. Yet I know you are fighting it just as I am. So when you encounter someone, be kind, because they are fighting a difficult battle. Walter Pater famously said that all music aspires to all art aspires to the condition of music. True enough. The condition of music, specifically jazz, teaches us that far from being a threat to the collective, the immense amount of individual freedom that is given within the improvising jazz collective enhances not only the individual, but the group. Another lesson to remember. It's also true that all technology aspires to the condition of being human. That's why we're trying to create computers that think like human beings. Think how comforting it is that with all this mass of technology that we have around us, that the ultimate aspiration is to be what we are. Human beings striving, struggling, learning, becoming ever closer, ever more often approximating what we want to be for that moment. These lessons should stick with us. Remember also, as Lord Acton said, that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. There is no inherent value in technology. The technology that allows us access to information can be turned with a mouse click against us, to collect our data and use it illegally, to spy on us, to hound us with noisy and disturbing advertisements. Don't be deluded into thinking that technology is progress or that technology has an inherent good. The inherent good in the end rests with people. And that's why we talk today about the human condition. There is so much to celebrate. So what are we to do now that we, despite all our myriad technology, stand at the center of a universe that we are still busily about creating? We create. Remember Steven Soderbergh's Oscar speech when he won the Oscar for Best Director in 2001 for Traffic? He thanked everyone. He dedicated his Oscar not to all of his friends or his agents or the movie company or the producers, but to everyone, everywhere, anywhere, who spends even a part of his or her day creating something. We are creating. On the subject of creation and what we have to achieve it, no one has made the point better than the great playwright Tom Stoppard, who has a character in his masterpiece, The Real Thing, say, "Words are innocent, neutral, precise, standing for this, describing that, meaning the other. So if you look after them, you can build bridges across incomprehension and chaos. I don't think writers are sacred, but words are. They deserve respect. If you get the right ones in the right order, you can nudge the world a little or make a poem which children will speak for you when you're dead." Finally, on the subject of progress, a vignette that shows the power of the Genesis story, whether you believe that story is revealed truth or merely a powerful metaphor. One day, a young man of precocious gardening gifts was tending a garden that he kept in the tiny little corner of his tiny little backyard in the center of a great urban mass. A priest happened down the street and said, "Well, son, that's quite a beautiful garden that you and God have created." And the boy looked up and said, "Thank you, Father, but you should have seen it when God tended it alone." Thank you.